Are you done? Only 39 responded to this survey, okay, to this poll. Okay, I think I just proceed. But most of you feels that PowerPoint is an engaging presentation too, okay? 8 not sure. 8 not sure. Still waiting for more response. Okay, I think we shall stop now. Okay, we can see the trend. Okay, most of you thinks that it's engaging, and some of you feel that it is. You are not sure whether it's an engaging presentation or not, but none actually says no. Okay, there's a very interesting finding because what we have so far in the literature, okay, there are two schools of thought. Number one, it is most of the, I would say some of the literature say that PowerPoint is not a powerful presentation tool, okay, but those who knows how to create it, okay, according to specific criteria, okay, you can actually even create that PowerPoint to be very powerful if you know the criteria. Okay, so all right, not moving anymore. Hold on, yeah. Hey. Sorry, my slide is not moving. I think I have to stop sharing first. Okay, I'm sharing again. Sorry. All right. Okay. Now, today is that we're going to, first of all, we want to look what are the common problems with the PowerPoint slides design. Okay. So based on your own experience, what are the problems that you face when you prepare, okay, your PowerPoint and when you deliver the content during your lecture or during your talk? Secondly, I'm going to introduce what is cognitive load theory. Okay? Cognitive load theory is it is an evidence-based theory, it's instructional design theory that has lots of evidence that have been proven to be effective for instructional design. Okay? And then what are the principles of cognitive load theory? And last but not least, we're going to design, okay, engaging slides using the cognitive load theory principles. Okay. There is no hands-on for today, okay, but I'm going to introduce to you how to design engaging slide based on that principles. Another um, uh, uh, survey, okay, I just want to know from your own experience, okay, what are the problems, okay, that you have been facing while preparing this PowerPoint presentation. Okay, you can try to scan the QR code, or again, you can go to the mentimeter.com. Okay. Okay, you can go to the mentimeter.com and okay, and okay, go to this mentimeter.com and enter this the link just now, and just enter this code 79237481. Okay, let's have a look. What are the problems related to the PowerPoint presentation based on your own experience? Or you can also scan this QR code here. All right. No one responded yet. Do you have the link? Anyone?
Prof, share the code.
Code. Okay, sorry.
Saya tak biasa dengan QR code.
Okay. Okay. Hold on. Sekejap ya. Sekejap. Dia yang ke atas ni mengganggu. Okay. Yes. The code is, you follow the code, the link just now, www.menti.com, and then use this code 79237481. Okay. Okay, it's boring, lack of design, okay, participation, limited theme, okay, not interesting, boring, okay, not attractive, outdated, not engaging, not creative, okay. What else? Most of you, okay, only 14 responded. Not okay, I'm still waiting. Boring, outdated, boring. Okay.
Prof share number dia dekat chat
Di
boleh
sini.
Prof?
19237481.
kecil.
Oh, tak nampak Okay, sekejap ya.
7921.
79237481. Sekejap ya. Mana ni tadi? 9237481. Okay. Right. Too wordy. Lack of design. Not engaging. Too wordy. Boring. Okay. Still not engaging. Not attractive. Okay. Too wordy. Okay. Top 3 Too wordy. Still too wordy. Not engaging. Not attractive. Okay. Lack of design. Boring. Outdated. Boring. Too wordy. Lack of design. Okay. More. Waiting for more. Okay, too wordy, boring, lack of design, still not interactive. Okay. Not engaging. Okay, still same, lack of design, boring, too wordy, not engaging. Top 5, not interactive. Okay. Okay, still waiting for more. Okay, I think we shall stop here because okay, most of you says that PowerPoint slides are not engaging, too wordy, boring, lack of design, not interactive. Okay, but ironically, most of you, almost I think maybe 70% of you feel that PowerPoint is a powerful tool just now from the previous poll. Okay, let us begin with our content, right? Hold on. Okay, so actually you are right. If we don't know how to prepare the PowerPoint presentation, so this will happen. These are the common problems identified with PowerPoint slide design that has been listed in the literature. Okay, basically it's wordy, overly long. Okay, and then sometimes we don't know how to choose the background. Okay, and because of the bad background, it produces bad perceptual difference. Okay, it has lack of contrast between the content and between the background. Okay, between the content with background. So this will impair learning too. Okay, and poor color combination. Okay, I'm using the extreme end. Okay, poor color combination. Okay, the other one is poor diagram management. Okay, like me, I'm teaching anatomy. And for your information, for those who know, anatomy is a very difficult subject, especially for novice learners. For medical students, it is taught during the first year. Okay, so they are just like transition period from a layman to medical personnel. So they don't know the terms, anatomical terms. Okay, and they have to learn all different parts of human body, not only the muscle, the skin, but also the nerves and also the vessels. So it's very difficult. Okay, and anatomy usually for my in my context, we have to know how to manage diagram properly. So I think other specialty also the same, other topics also the same. Okay, you also have diagrams, you have flow charts to show to your audience, to your students, but make sure the poor diagram management will hinders learning. Okay, so you have to know how to manage the diagram. Okay. High extraneous elements. High extraneous elements mean unnecessary information that is not needed in the for learning. For example, like this one, there are too many labels. Okay, too many labels, and there are unrelated diagram text. Okay, so this is known as high extraneous element redundancy. Okay, so and the other one is bad font choices. Fonts mean either the size or the type of font that you use in your PowerPoint slide. So these are the common problems with the PowerPoint slide design. Because of this, it becomes unattractive, like you mentioned just now. It becomes boring, okay, especially when you don't know how to deliver it properly. Okay, it becomes not engaging as well. Okay, why? Because all these element will increase the cognitive load of the learners. Okay, I will explain more what is cognitive load, but load is like in Malay we call it beban, right? If cognitive means thinking, so ia memberi beban yang tinggi kepada pelajar dalam pemikiran. So high cognitive load, high burden, high mental load to the students during learning, and that's why it hampers learning. Okay, so before I explain further about the cognitive load, let's have a look. What is cognitive load theory? Okay, so cognitive load theory in simple term, it means that while you are teaching the student, while you are presenting your slides, you are actually taking into consideration the students' mind, how the student's mind work. Okay, meaning that while you are teaching, you are controlling the student's mind as well. Okay, so you are doing the two things. You are not only just delivering the information, you are ensuring that student will understand your content. Okay, how? By applying this cognitive load theory. And as I mentioned just now, it's an instructional design theory, right? It's an instructional design theory, meaning that it provides you with a guideline on how to prepare your instruction. Instructions mean your content, okay, your teaching content properly so that it fits the human brain function. Okay, so meaning that you have to understand first, how does the human mind work? Okay, how does the human mind work? So then you can actually design your PowerPoint slide to fit the human mind function. So in general, okay, we have our human mind. We have three type of memory. One is sensory memory. The second one is working memory. Then we also have the long-term memory. Let me explain one by one. So what does the sensory memory do? Okay, sensory memory, it will receive new information. Information means the visual information, the auditory information. If you taste something, okay, you eat something, that is the taste information. If you touch something, that is kinesthetic information. All this information will go to the sensory memory in your brain. And this information is being picked up by special sensors, okay, the eyes, the ears, okay, the tongue, apa ni, nose, okay. So these are being picked up by these special sensors, by these sensory receptors. These are the special sensors. Sorry, the new information is the special sensors is being picked up by these sensory receptors, and then from that sensory receptors, it goes to the sensory memory in the brain. Okay, I think at this point you don't need to know where is the sensory memory, but for us like anatomists, we know where is the sensory memory, right? And what happens next? Okay, so but before that, okay, we have to understand that sensory memory, it has unlimited capacity, meaning that at one point you can receive lots of information at one point. At this point, you are listening to my presentation, but you can also reading your message in a WhatsApp message, or you can also do your you can read newspapers or anything. So at one point you can receive so many information at one time. Okay, either it's related or unrelated to your main focus. Okay, but all will goes to your sensory memory. Okay, there is no limited number, but it is very ultra short, meaning that when it goes to your sensory memory within 1 or 30 seconds, it will decay out if you don't do something. So to ensure that what we have perceived just now, what have enters our sensory memory goes to the working memory, must be attention focus. Okay, without attention, okay, the information that is being picked up by sensory memory will not go to the working memory. Okay, so what happened? It will decay out. It will be decayed out. So, for example, now you are listening to my my presentation. Okay, and there is other distraction there, and you can also you can receive, your ears can pick up that distraction, but you are not paying attention to that distraction. Okay, you are only paying attention to my voice, okay, to my visual my PowerPoint slide. So that information will go to the working memory, the one that you pay attention only. Okay, so we'll go to the working memory. Are you okay so far? Okay, right. So what happens next? In the working memory will convert this information, the raw information from sensory memory, into schema. Okay, so what is schema? Schema is, okay, it's actually a very difficult term to explain, but I can say that schema is just an organized information, okay, organized information that can be stored later on in long-term memory. That's all. Okay, so it is important for that raw information to be converted into schema in order for you to understand. So that's why sometimes in lectures, kan, student kata, oh, now I understand. Oh, yeah, I understand. It means that raw information has been converted into schema. Okay, that is in working memory. So that is the job of working memory. But working memory, unfortunately, it has very limited capacity. Very limited capacity meaning in the sense that it can only store 7 plus minus 2 element of information at one time. Meaning that when your sensory memory transfer information to working memory, okay, 1 enters the working memory, number 2 enters until number 9. sorry. Okay. So the 10th when it exceeds the 7 plus minus 2 information, the 10th info that enters the working memory will be decayed out. Okay, so meaning that student can concentrate only at most 9 element of information at one time. That's it. Okay, 9 information at most. But to be more, to be on the safe side, 5 elements. Okay. So, meaning that if you have the 7 plus minus 2 element in the working memory, so that element will be converted into schema. Okay, schema. But the processing capacity is about 3 to 5 chunks at one time. Okay, so you have to be careful when preparing a PowerPoint slide. Make sure that information at one time will not exceed. Okay, the number of information will not exceed this element. And then it retain the information only for 20 seconds. So within 20 seconds, it is very important for this working memory to convert the new information into schema. Okay, it's very important to do that. How? By controlling our pacing. Okay, pacing. We have to go one by one at one time. Okay, that is working memory. I'll explain further about the technique, but this is just how the human mind works, right? Okay, so once it's converted into schema, this schema will be transferred into the long-term memory. This is just like our computers. Okay, when we save in the hard disk, it's considered permanent. It's considered permanent. When we save it into long-term memory, so it's called, it is now we can say knowledge. Okay, one is saved. Now the student attain knowledge. Okay, so it's permanent and it can be retrieved back. Okay? It can be retrieved back into the working memory. Okay, but retrieve in it retrieval queues. Yes, retrieval queues. Without this retrieval queue, sometimes it's very difficult to retrieve back. Why we need to retrieve the long-term, the previously stored information in long-term memory? Because we want to use or to incorporate with the new information received from sensory memory. To process that new information into new schema baby, we need this one to help us to integrate with the new information. So this is called prior knowledge. So when this is encoded into the long-term memory, the students already have some prior knowledge. Okay, with prior knowledge, working memory function is better because you can use this prior knowledge to process the info in the working memory. So that is basically the in general term. But long-term memory, again, it has unlimited capacity in terms of number of information and duration. However, it also have limitations. Sometimes if you have brain damage, dementia, okay, there is some forgetting incident or false memory happens, okay, in the long-term memory. So this is in a general sense how the human mind works. But there is one model, okay, about Atkinson-Shiffrin three-stage information processing model. So actually the same framework that I have described just now, but to incorporate it with cognitive load theory. Where does cognitive load theory fit in? Okay, it's actually here in the working memory. Okay, working memory, whereby for learning to occur, the total cognitive load must not exceed the working memory capacity. Remember just now, working memory capacity is very limited. Okay, in terms of number of information that it can hold and in terms of number of information it can process at one time. And it is very short, about 20 seconds only. So very limited. So we must play around the strategy that we use to create our PowerPoint must cater this syarat, meaning that it have to ensure, we must ensure that it must not exceed the working memory capacity. So the capacity, the limited capacity, right? Okay, and to understand that, we have to understand our working memory as well. For working memory, inside our working memory, okay, we have one central executive, okay, the boss, okay, the central executive. And there are two centers: visual, spatial, sketchpad, and also the phonological loop. Visual spatial sketchpad will analyze or convert visual information and spatial information. Okay, visual information and spatial information into schema. Whereas the phonological loop will analyze the auditory information. Okay, auditory information. So which means that if your students mention that I'm a visual learner, I am an auditory learner. So that's why I don't want to learn like this, because I'm a visual learner. I don't want to listen to your lecture. I just want to look at the diagrams because I'm a visual learner. Okay, that is not right. That's a very big myth. Okay, because why? Because all of us have these two centers. All learners, they have these two centers. Don't think how we optimize these centers. Okay, can we we have, for as an educator, we must know how to optimize the visual spatial sketchpad, and we must also know how to optimize the phonological loop. Okay, phonological loop. So there is actually no such thing as I'm a visual learner, I'm a auditory learner. Okay, it's just the way how we optimized it. And to integrate between these two centers, right, we have episodic buffer. Okay, episodic buffer. So that's why central executive, sometimes if the info is in visual and also phonological loop, this will integrate these two information into one. Okay, so that is the function of central executive. I think the other framework is also similar, like I have mentioned just now, but just want to highlight one more thing, that sensory memory. Okay, the sensory memory that we have that I have mentioned earlier, that receive new information, that new information is known as cognitive load. Anything that enters our sensory memory, that is the cognitive load. So we must ensure that during our teaching especially, so we must ensure that we only limit the load, limit only for the specific for our teaching only. Reduce distraction, because distraction is also load. Okay. So I think the same thing. All right. Okay. Any questions so far? That is a very I would say very difficult concept of a human brain. But do you have any question before we proceed to the different types of cognitive load? Anyone would like to ask? Because I cannot see the chat box.
Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah.
Okay, I have maybe two questions.
Yeah.
My name is Shariza. Okay, one is the fact that you said that it's a myth about when students say they are prone to visual.
Yeah.
But maybe perhaps what I look at it as if it's not their learning ability, but their receptiveness.
Yes, correct.
So so I think in a way, how do we need to, maybe the question is, do we need to cater to each individual, I mean, the students' receptive proneness in a way? That's one
Okay.
question. And then the second question is, Prof, if you can just summarily or about the loop just now.
Okay.
I didn't get it that well because you said that it can be disturbed or something like that. Thank you, Prof.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. Okay, later on, okay, when we learn about the cognitive load theory principles, okay, you will see that cognitive load theory is universal, meaning that maybe you mean because of the perceptiveness too, the universal in a sense that when you apply that theory, okay, it applies to all learners. Okay, so it actually equalize the perceptiveness to actually equal according to one individual to another. Okay, I will explain later because the strategy, because the human brain is similar. But unless if the learners is having some sensory disturbances here, sorry. Yeah. If the learner is having sensory receptor problem, yes, we have to cater that. For example, like if you are teaching anatomy to visually impaired student and teaching anatomy to normal student, you have to think a different way how to do it because it has problem here. But in terms of the memory, it's equal. If there is no problem with the sensory receptors, there are way to do it. Okay, there are way to capture their attention. But not only for in our PowerPoint presentation, but in other methods also, like how we deliver our presentation, how we prepare our learning environment. Okay, so there are many factors to consider as well. Okay, so I think I hope I answered the question. But in terms of memory, if you apply the cognitive load theory, it's universal. Okay, so meaning that person A sensory memory is similar with person B sensory memory. Only thing that if the sensory receptors is not similar, so you have to cater a different way of teaching. That's the need. But if you are teaching general broad audience, case normal, so it won't be any problem, especially if you apply the cognitive load theory properly. I think that's all. The second one just now, in terms of the working memory, just this one. Okay, basically, working memory has two centers. There's a visual spatial sketchpad and the phonological loop. Okay, visual spatial sketchpad, it will process the visual input and spatial input. Okay, visual and spatial input. So whereas the phonological loop will process the auditory input. Okay, auditory input. So for the visual input, when it's already converted into schema, okay, those who pay attention to visual input, okay, it will go directly to here, visual spatial input. And then for when there's auditory input, it will go directly to here. Okay, so there will be visual schema here, and there will also be auditory schema here. But to make it meaningful, okay, to make it meaningful, the information to be meaningful, especially during lecture, it need to be integrated. So how to integrate it? It's the function of central executive, okay, by using this episodic buffer. So it means that when we are teaching our student, we cannot rely only on diagrams and text, because diagram and text is visual spatial sketchpad. This is what a common mistake by lecturers, because lecturers like to read the slide, okay, like to read the slide and just show the diagram. Okay, That's very common mistake because you are only you are only stimulating this visual sketchpad of the student. But one thing that lecturers tend to forget is the phonological loop. Okay, phonological loop means that the auditory, the verbal explanation, okay, without reading the text, your voice tone, okay, okay. So this all plays a role in helping the student to understand. Okay, did I answer your question?
Yes, Prof. Thank you so much. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. I cannot see. Yes.
Excuse me, Prof. Can you elaborate a bit on the episodic buffer?
Okay. Episodic buffer. I think this is a very complicated term, especially for neuropsychology. Okay. The function of episodic is very complicated, but the function, I would say that at this point you must understand that episodic buffer will help your working memory to integrate the information. That's it. Because this is an independent center, this is another independent center in the working memory. Structurally, morphologically in the brain, okay, this is at different site. Okay, your brain, one brain, okay, this is at different region, this is at different region. Okay, and to make it to make the information meaningful, it has to be sent to another region. Okay, another region which is at the prefrontal cortex, at the in front. Okay, so to go there, usually there are lots of tracks. Okay, we call it tracks. Okay, that what matter track. Okay, in structural wise, that is episodic buffer. We connects all the information to go to that prefrontal cortex. So it's very complicated, but actually in terms of function, it just help you to integrate. Okay, it help the learners to integrate whatever they learn, okay, visually and auditorily, to make it one meaningful information. I think that's all at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, well, all right. Any more question before we proceed? Let me look at my.
Prof,
Yes.
is there any role of hormones related to stress that affect this
Right.
working memory? For example, kalau macam kita tak ada kala yang terlampau garang ke apa, ada induce stress ke apa
Yes.
dalam information,
Yes.
an effect.
Correct. Yeah. There is a hormonal effect. They are actually multifactorial. That is internal factor. Okay, but we are not covering that in our framework today. Because why? Because for cognitive load theory, it's just we are. I think that is beyond our if you are a lecturer, you cannot control the students' hormone, right? But you can control the environment. Okay, control the environment. If the student is having stress at that time, meaning the cortisol level is high. So how are you going to control the environment? You have to make yourself less stressful so that the student will be less stressful when they come to your class. So I think being approachable, friendly lecture, sometimes it's important, because we know that when we teach students, especially large group of students, we don't know their capability, their coping mechanism to stress. So if you make yourself more friendly, approachable, I think it will help them to reduce a bit the stress. Okay, they are more open to you. Okay, they can refer to you at any time. You can give them reassurance. Okay, if you have any question, you can just come to me. Okay, or email me, something like that. Okay, so that they feel more comfortable, at least during your class. Yes, to answer your question, there is a role, internal factor role, that affect the memory. Okay, and in fact, in the cognitive load theory research, okay, the researchers are doing are actually measuring the hormone, even genetic, okay, because to look at the coping mechanism and how does it affect to the brain. Okay, I think that's all. But for today, we are going to concentrate on how we're going to prepare engaging and powerful PowerPoint presentations. Is that okay? All right. Can I proceed? Okay, right. All right. Okay. Principles of cognitive load theory. All right, we know already what is cognitive load. Cognitive load are the information that enters the sensory memory, right? And actually, there are three types of cognitive load, but I'm not going to introduce that one because that's another cognitive load. That cognitive load, the third cognitive load, is actually debatable. Some say that it is not cognitive load. Okay, but for us educator, for us to understand how to prepare a good PowerPoint slide, maybe we just can concentrate on this one. Okay, but if you are interested to know about the third load, maybe if we have time, I can share a bit on what is the third load, the German load. The first load is the intrinsic load. Okay, the second load is the extraneous load. And what is intrinsic load? Okay, whatever content that you teach, okay, is the intrinsic load. Okay, because it is imposed by the difficulty level of that instructional materials, the content that you are going to teach your student. Okay, the content of your presentation, that is intrinsic load. Okay, for example, like, okay, so if it is difficult, it's high cognitive load, high intrinsic load. If it is less difficult, low intrinsic load. So for example, I'm using statistic here. Advanced statistic imposes higher intrinsic load than basic statistic. Okay, that's number one. Number two, intrinsic load also depends on the learner's prior knowledge. Okay, remember the prior knowledge. That's not how we determine prior knowledge. When the schema already transferred to the long-term memory, then it becomes prior knowledge. So student with prior knowledge on the subject matter experience lower intrinsic load than student who has no prior knowledge. Okay, so another one is extraneous load, and this is usually imposed by unnecessary load, distraction, especially for example for PowerPoint, it's suboptimal instructional design. Suboptimal PowerPoint. Okay, in effect PowerPoint yang tak proper. Okay, so that impose higher extraneous load. For example, organized presentation imposes lower extraneous load than unorganized presentation. Okay, why do we need to know this? Because if we sum up these two, IL plus EL, it becomes total cognitive load. Okay, total cognitive load. And in order for learning to occur, total cognitive load must not exceed limited human working memory capacity. Remember, human working memory capacity can only process 7 plus minus 2 information at one time. 3 to 5 chunks information at one time. It can only store about 7 plus minus 2 information at one time within 20 seconds only. Within 20 seconds only. All right. So perhaps to make you understand better, you can refer to this framework. Okay, for example, this is the working memory capacity of a learner. Okay, from here to here. Okay, and if you are teaching the students, okay, you are imposing the intrinsic load. The content is the intrinsic load. Okay, and then extraneous load is unavoidable. Of course, it's unnecessary load, but it's unavoidable sometimes because of the environment. Okay, sometimes kucing lalu pun kita tak boleh nak control, right? Okay, sometimes internet connection problems, so that are extraneous load. Okay, and if you purposely impose extraneous load, for example, like you put wordy PowerPoint, so this one will be high. But intrinsic load plus extraneous load becomes the total cognitive load, and you can see that the total cognitive load does not exceed the working memory capacity. It still does not exceed the working memory capacity. So in this case, learning can happen. Okay? Learning can happen. Why? Because this is the working memory resources that process the intrinsic load, and this is the working memory resources that process the extraneous load. So when in this condition, student can understand our lecture. Okay, because intrinsic and extraneous load does not exceed working memory capacity. But in this condition here, okay, if the extraneous load is high, okay, if the extraneous load is high, you can see that the total cognitive load also exceed the working memory capacity. Can you see? So it exceed the working memory capacity. In this condition, students are having cognitive overload, meaning that whatever they have learned during lecture will be drained out. That's why sometimes students kata, tak faham langsung lecture tadi. Because of the cognitive overload. Sometimes bila student keluar, oh senang lah walaupun tajuk tu susah tapi senang lah faham. Kan? Because you are, because the total cognitive load does not exceed yet the working memory capacity. So how to avoid the cognitive overload? There are two principles. Number one, okay, remember intrinsic load depends on the difficulty level and learner's prior knowledge. Okay, difficulty level, learner's prior knowledge. Extraneous load is suboptimal instructional design. So how to manage this one? Okay, of course, when a subject is difficult, you cannot alter it. Okay, whether it can make it less difficult, no, because like advanced statistics just now, it's difficult compared to basic statistics. Advanced mathematics, of course, it's difficult compared to basic mathematics, right? So you cannot alter it. You can alter it, but it can be managed to be perceived as a simpler one. Okay, but this one you can reduce because this is distraction. These are the unwanted loads, so it can be reduced. If you reduce, the extraneous load is reduced, what will happen? Sorry, you are actually freeing the working memory resources. So there will be more working memory resources. Okay, so that working memory resources can be diverted here to process the intrinsic load that cannot be reduced just now. So this is the how to say how the mechanism the mechanism of reducing the cognitive overload. Okay, but this is our core main business today: how to manage IL and reduce EL in our PowerPoint slide design. Okay, remember the two concepts: manage IL and reduce EL. Okay, just to show you the developer of cognitive load theory, Professor Dr. John Sweller from New South Wales. But okay, why it's important? I think all educators need to know what is cognitive load theory, because we are teaching the students. Okay, students are using their cognition to understand our content. So that's why we have to apply cognitive load theory. And once more is evidence-based. Okay, evidence-based. You can just Google, you can just look at there are so many studies, okay, well-designed studies that actually tested for each of the minor components of the cognitive load theory. Okay, only the visual part, auditory part, many more. Okay, so you have to, if you are interested to, you can just look at these other articles. Then it prevents information overload during learning. You can apply it properly. The one is universal, practical. We don't need to have, I would say, special skills, okay, except for skills in understanding the cognitive load and preparing the PowerPoint slide. Okay, you can also use it for your MOOC, your other type of instruction material apart from PowerPoint. Okay, and you can minimize wasted mental effort. We don't want the mental effort to be exhaustively used, okay, so that student will not feel that burden while they learn. Okay, so can minimize that wasted mental effort, and it can be manipulable. Okay? Imposed by cognitive instruction is manipulable, so high load can be reduced. Okay, so this is why we need to okay, before I introduce to how to manage intrinsic load, because we have two principles just now: manage intrinsic load and also reduce extraneous load. Any question before we go to the main part here? Any question? Actually, I cannot see the chat. Hold on, I look at the chat. How to measure working memory capacity for each student? Okay. How to measure the working memory? Okay. Kejap ya. Any more? Subject difficulty has correlation with working memory capacity? No. Subject difficulty, no. It has no correlation with working memory capacity, except that if the student have different level of expertise. For example, like first year student and the final year student, okay, the final year student may have prior knowledge on that matter. So they perceive that subject easier compared to the first year student. So because just now I mentioned subject difficulty, which is the intrinsic load, is imposed by number one, the complexity of the subject. The second one is the prior knowledge. Okay, I will explain more in this slide about the intrinsic load. Okay, name any more? So much cognitive load we are facing for executive. Okay, all right, it's okay. You can have a look at it later. What else? How to measure the working memory capacity of each student. Okay, actually, there are several ways to measure, either biologically or you can also use the students' perceptions. Okay, you can measure the students' perceptions. There are several cognitive load inventory that are readily used, already validated. You can use that after your lectures or after your teaching, just to look at your performance. Actually, if your performance in preparing the PowerPoint slides, you can see, oh, for today's lecture the intrinsic load is high. Okay, oh, I managed to reduce my extraneous load in compared to last time. My extraneous load improved. Okay, capacity quickly. So, can learners do something to increase their working capacity quickly before just yes they can, but perhaps to answer that question, let's have a look at this one first. Okay, principles of managing intrinsic load. Okay, again, I repeat, intrinsic load is imposed by difficulty level of the instructional material. Okay, difficult. How do you determine it's difficult? Okay, I will show you later. And it depends on the learner's prior knowledge. How you determine that it's difficult? This is the example that I've shown earlier. Advanced statistic impose higher intrinsic load than basic statistic. Number one, it depends on the higher number of information. Okay, right? Number two, it depends on the information that interact among each other, the number of information that interact each other. For example, like this one, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 information, and this information interact each other. Okay, and you have another instruction, there are only 3 information. This is the interaction. So you can see there is more number of information with more interaction compared to this one, lesser. Okay, so this one, okay, this one high element interactivity. Okay, this is what we call high element interactivity because there are higher number of information and they interact together. So this one impose higher intrinsic load as compared to this one. Compared to this one, okay, there is low number and low interaction. So if your content is like this, you have to expect that your lecture will impose high cognitive intrinsic load to the student. You cannot change that information, that fact, but you can manage the intrinsic load to make it less perceived, to make the student perceive it less difficult. All right. And the other one is, it also depends on the learner's prior knowledge. Okay, like I mentioned just now, if students have some prior knowledge, they will perceive it less intrinsic load. The intrinsic load when we measure, it's lesser compared to those without prior knowledge. For example, like this one, anyone would like to try? Okay, 2 plus 3, what is the answer? Can, I think everyone knows. Okay, 2 plus 3, the answer you know already. But if I ask you, anyone would like to, anyone answer this question? Anyone, can you answer this question? Or you can write in the chat box. Anyone knows? What is Todoba, Laga, Jare, Afa? Okay. No one knows. Okay.
No prior knowledge.
No prior knowledge, correct. Because you have no prior knowledge. You have no prior knowledge on this. I don't know what language is. I think it's Tagalog, Philippines. Okay, Todoba, Laga, Jare, Afa. Because no prior knowledge on that language, you cannot answer. You cannot answer this one. But actually, it's the same. This is actually the same. 2 plus 3. But this is in English. You know the answer already is 5 because you have some prior knowledge. You know what is 2, what is 3. But this one, since no prior knowledge, you cannot answer. So that is, you can see the difference, right? So whenever we want to teach students, make sure our students have some prior knowledge. If they don't have prior knowledge, for example, you're teaching the first year student, the novice student, please instill some prior knowledge before your class. So that is what I usually do. I explain afterward. On my next slide. Okay, because this is not stored in long-term memory. So if we teach our subject in foreign language, okay, language that is not the student is not familiar with that language, so of course higher intrinsic load. So how to address the high element interactive effect? Okay, there is one effect that has been well studied. It is called isolated interacting element effect. What is isolated interacting element effect? Okay, number one, okay, you have the information. Okay, what you need to do is you have to introduce one information at one time. Introduce this one. Okay, after we have completed, now we're going to learn about this one. Okay, explain a bit. Okay, now let's move to the next one. Explain this one, explain this one, explain this one. Isolated. Okay, in isolation. And after that, at the end of the, once you have introduced everything, then you introduce the interaction one by one. Okay, this is the principle. I will show you the example later. So then only you introduce, you combine back all the isolated information and then introduce the correlation or relation. Okay. Sorry, introduce their interaction. Okay, so that is isolated interacting element effects. Okay. Now this one, how do you instill prior knowledge? Okay, if they are the final year student, you are teaching the third or second year student, and you know that these students already learn about certain things, okay? So you have to stimulate their prior knowledge, okay? But those who have no prior knowledge, we have to instill that prior knowledge, okay? How to do that? Okay, usually what we ask the student to do, okay, many lecturers like to, okay, please read about this one first before you come to my class next week. Okay, please read about this. How do we ensure that the student really read? Okay, that is the problem. We do not have the autonomy to control, okay, to control their learning after our class, except that we provide them with certain specific tasks. Okay, and sometimes you can ask them to submit, but what I usually do is that I will put in the e-learning, okay, a simple video, because I don't want to impose so many load to the student while stimulating their prior knowledge. I want them to be less stressful, so I won't ask them to read the textbook or text anything, but I will give them a video, a simple video, 2 or 3 minute video that can explain certain information that will be used in my lecture or my class. Okay, but not only video, but I will that video is accompanied with several questions that they need to answer. Okay, and I never ask them to submit, but what I did at the beginning of my class, usually I will ask them again the question, so that okay, we can get actually quite good response, because they have and we know in general they have watched the video and they can answer the question sometimes. But I recently I convert that question into quizzes, so I can actually monitor who's actually answered that question, okay, who are not answering. Then if the number of this if there are many students who did not answer the question, I will alert the leaders, okay, to go to the quiz section and answer all the questions. Usually they are compliant, at least to my students, they all compliant with this method. And I realized that they have good prior knowledge before the lecture. Okay, that is pre-learning activity. You can do any kind of pre-learning activity that suits your student best. Okay, I think that's all. Any question for the intrinsic load before we go to the extraneous load? Okay, but extraneous load, extraneous load, again, this is imposed by suboptimal instructional design for PowerPoint. Right. So the organized presentation impose lower extraneous load than unorganized presentation. For example, like this one, if you have a diagram, if you want to explain a diagram, okay, you put a diagram at one slide, and then you put the description, okay, the text, the related text on another slide, or vice versa. You put the text first, and then the next slide is the diagram. Okay, compared to this one, this is what we call split attention effect. Okay, split attention effect. I will explain later. Okay, I have to explain. Okay, this impose higher extraneous load, because why? Because the tag is located to split their attention in order to relate these two information. Okay, so that's why sometimes student likes to ask for your PowerPoint beforehand, right? Okay, because they want to flip over and have a look at it. Because if you design it this way, okay, student prefer to have it as a hard copy. Okay, they have to split their attention. Okay, but if you put it side by side like this one, okay, you put the diagram here, the text here, this is what we call physically integrated format. Okay, physically integrated format. It fulfill the spatial contiguity effect because the student no need to split their attention. When they are splitting their attention, they are actually imposed more mental or workload to process the extraneous load. Okay, so that's why it's better to put it like this. I will show the example later. So this is lower extraneous load. This is based on research and practice. But if you have this one, if you prepare the slide in physically integrated format, and then you read the slide. This is an apple. Okay, it is red in color. So you read again the slide. Okay, verbatim. Okay, this is what we call. It actually imposes another effect to the student. It's called redundancy effect. Okay, what happened is that the student will only use the visual spatial sketchpad because they see this apple and they see the text. This is visual, and at the same time you are reading it. Your voice become redundant. Your voice become redundant. The ears will not pick up the voice. Okay, so it only the students only use visual spatial sketchpad. Okay, and we are not using the phonological loop. So this is causing higher extraneous load. But if you have this kind of slide, but you explain it in a different way. Okay, this one is called modality effect. It addresses the temporal contiguity, meaning that you are stimulating the visual spatial sketchpad. Students are looking at diagram, looking at the text. At the same time, you are stimulating the phonological load. This has been proven to have lower extraneous load. Okay. Are you okay so far, everyone? Any question? Is it too technical? Lampau. Okay. Any question? Okay. Thank you. Right. So, so another one. Okay, we have. Okay, I have introduced you to this one, the physically integrated format, modality effect. But there is another one. This is actually, we borrowed it from CTML, Cognitive Theory of Multimedia Learning, the signaling principles. Okay, signaling principles. Sometimes we have to put some visual cues, okay, to attract the students or to guide the students' attention to the relevant materials. And what you can do is you can use these tools like dotted lines, okay, circles, okay, brackets, okay, arrows, okay. So I will show it later. That's signaling principle. Signaling principle meaning that you use visual cues to guide the learner's attention to the relevant material. Okay, I think that's all about the cognitive load theory. If you are interested more, okay, I can provide you with cognitive load theory guideline later. Okay, I'll give the link. But now I'm going to introduce how to design the engaging PowerPoint slide using the CLT principles. Okay. There are actually, if you can fulfill these 6 steps, okay, 6 steps or 6 tips in designing the PowerPoint slide, I think it will be good already. Okay, the first one, okay, is to select the suitable background. Okay? Select suitable background and color scheme. Why? Because this will reduce the extraneous load. Okay, and what effect are we addressing is the redundancy effect. Okay? The redundant signal will cause perceptual disturbances. Okay, number 2, you need to construct concise and also comprehensive text. How? Why? Because this will manage the intrinsic load and the effect, okay, the cognitive load effect, isolated interacting element effect. Okay, the one that I have shown earlier. The one step is to manage the diagram. Okay, this will reduce the extraneous load. Okay, by using this effect, redundancy, modality, split attention, and contiguity effect. Number 4, use visual cues and signals. Okay, is to manage IL and reduce IL because visual cues can be used to chunk the information as well. Okay, isolated interacting element effect, signaling principles. Okay, so I will show one by one afterward. Yeah. And then number 5 is select proper font and text treatment, because this will reduce extraneous load. This again fulfill the signaling principle. Avoid extraneous word diagrams and animation. This also reduce the extraneous load. Okay, let's have a look one by one. Okay, I actually, there's one question just now. How could we know that the suitable background and color scheme? Okay, okay. Now I'm going to introduce, okay, maybe after listening to this explanation, maybe it will answer your questions. Okay. Suitable background. Okay, I'm showing you 3 examples of plain background. Okay, plain, not design slide yet. Okay, plain background. Okay, from your opinion, okay, which one is better? Which one is better? The first one, second, third one. Middle, okay. Any more? Wide, okay. Left, which one? Left, this left. White, okay. All right, white, okay. Many of you mentioned white, white background, okay. You are right, okay. Sorry. White background, actually, it is the most suitable choice, but it also has disadvantage, okay. White background, why it's suitable? Because it can suit all kind of letters, okay. It can suit the black, blue, red letters, okay. It also suitable for colored diagrams like this one. If your content have lots of diagram, flow charts, okay, so you have to use white background more. And if you're using text bolding and italicizing, it will appear better in white. Okay. Okay, yes, correct, Dr. Nosila. Because why? One disadvantage of the white color background is because sometimes it can be dull, okay, and it depends on the lighting of the computer, your projection, slide projector. So if this happen, okay, you can actually make it. Actually, you have to test first, okay, because sometimes if the lecture hall is you have a very good slide projector, white is the best, okay. Yes, contrast is the key, correct. Okay, so because why? White can provide very good contrast. Okay, so if you think that the projection the slide projector is okay, so choose for white background. Okay, but it can appear a bit dull. Okay, a bit dull. But for black, of course, yes, this is also one of the choice. Not only black background, but dark colored slide. Okay, you can use dark blue, dark red, but not all dark colored background is suitable. Why? Because in fact black background in fact is very powerful, okay, very powerful and effective, especially when you present in like a keynote plenary, not so for lectures, okay, not so for lectures, but if you want to use this, you have to really play around with the letters, the colors, okay, the color combination, okay, because dark background, okay, usually absorb lots of light, so it's a low energy color. So what you can do is to find suitable words that can give contrast, okay, good contrast, like this one. This is white and yellow letters, right? But if you have diagram, okay, make sure that diagram is framed in white background, okay, so it provide good contrast. The only disadvantage of dark colored slide ni is that it's not suitable for data and text heavy slides, okay. Of course, we don't want a overly wordy slide, right? But sometimes you cannot avoid, especially when you present a flow chart, flow diagram, okay, or present a diagram with lots of things to explain. So please avoid black colored slide, okay? And to be on the safe side, white is better, okay? But remember, black or dark color slide, they are powerful, okay? They are powerful and because and effective because it can capture your attention. If you want to present something like maybe like 1 or 2 information, maybe you can just you can use black color slide. Okay, and if it is if the content is too much, okay, data too much, overly wordy, not to say overly wordy, but too many words in your slide, better to avoid. Because why? Because like I mentioned just now, it absorbs lights, right? So the eyes will try to work harder to absorb the light too. So the text will become a bit blur. Okay, so we call it halation effect. So yeah, I sometimes use this black colored slide, but most of the time I use white color slide. Okay, and of course this is something to avoid. Okay, because this is the striking colors, fluorescent highlighted colored slide. Of course, it will stain the eyes, okay, and affect the sensory memory. This cause perceptual disturbances. Okay, this is when you choose plain background. What about design background? What do you think about design background? Would you like to use a design background in your PowerPoint presentation? Depends, correct? Anyone else? Okay, yeah. Actually, yes, correct, it's depend. But, okay, sorry. Tak gerak pula. Noisy, okay. But for for design slide, okay, yes, EL can increase, correct? But for design slide, you can use design slide, but make sure you choose a minimalist design, okay? Not too overly design, okay? Not too colorful, okay? Because these are the extraneous load, okay? These are the extraneous load, and make sure that if you have a design slide, okay, if you have a diagram, okay, avoid lah design slide, okay? And make sure that design will not interrupt with the content to ensure good contrast. Content is not heavy like this one. If you just want to introduce the objective, right, to introduce the outline, okay, so you can use this one. Okay, the design slide very minimal. Or like this one, it can provide although there's a pictures behind there, you know, but it has been suppressed, okay, suppressed by the black colored shades, okay, and the text here has been being highlighted, okay, so you can use this one, but again this is not banyak content, right? It's just a very simple info that you want to show to the, so it depends, but please remember you should avoid extraneous load, okay, avoid introducing unnecessary load. Okay, just now in the content, let me check. What is general practice, or what is the general practice in choosing suitable color of background? General practice so far, usually white if you want to give lectures, if you have very difficult text, okay, difficult information to be presented, white. But if like you are presenting I mean like a conference, okay, you are invited speaker, you can adjust accordingly, okay. But again, black is, I would say, very powerful, but make sure whatever is inside that dark colored slide is not overly wordy or not too much diagram in it. So you have to balance when you want to use dark color slide. But to be on the safe side, general practice is white based on the cognitive load theory. Matching of dark colors notes versus light background. Yes, but again, this is you must ensure that the matching, I will show you again the color combination, that the matching will also make sure that it will provide good contrast between the two match, and the color will not be vibrating each other. You can do that, but again, make sure it will not interrupt the content as well. Okay. What else? I prefer plain background, correct? Me too, prefer plain background. EL can increase, correct? Okay, noisy, all right. I think that's all, question. Okay, these are the, beside white and dark, any suitable color? No, so far white and dark. For light like beige color, okay, light cream beige color, that can be used, but sometimes it is not really suitable if you put diagram. Okay, kalau if text, simple text, I think should be no problem. Okay, but my own practice, I usually use white, and we can actually reduce the dullness of that PowerPoint by introducing animation, not animation, the visual cues. Okay, you have to use color combination. Okay, like this one. Okay, you are using blue. Okay, but with apa ni yellow words. Okay, to make it interesting. So yeah, like this one, these are the avoid this color combination. Okay, this is from research. Red and green not suitable because, of course, these two colors, they are blend to each other. And furthermore, if you have colorblind learners, okay, they cannot read the words. Okay, And for this one, and blue and red, this one not enough contrast. It may seem to be okay in your laptop, but when you display it or project it into on screen, the audience cannot see. Okay, because not enough contrast. This one, orange and blue, is vibrating. Okay, it's vibrating, and it will cause illusion and strain the eyes. So these are the among the color combination that should be avoided. Okay. Any questions so far? Right. Right. For construct mixing background colors, a good practice example. Sorry, I cannot get the question. Buka balik. Is mixing background colors a good practice? Example, in 10 slide presentation, yes. We use 3 different colors. Yes. I would say it's a good practice to make the whole presentation interesting. Okay, interesting. Actually, I'm using that also in my presentation, but you have to make sure that when you design according to PowerPoint slide, it actually refer to each slide at one time. So when you use, maybe you want to present diagram, so you use white. The next thing you want to give quiz, so use black. So according to the purpose of each slide, you have to follow the purpose of each slide. So it's actually a good practice to make your PowerPoint presentation interesting. Okay, but I would say that for each slide you should avoid mixing the colors. Okay, unless your intention is to just to capture atau stimulate interest, something like that. Not about the content heavy slide. Okay, content heavy slide better white. Okay, like is using cursor. Yes. Using cursor and pointer is very helpful. Okay, I think this will be covered under visual cues. Like now I'm using this one, not the mouse. Okay, because it provide more contrast. Kan, when you show something, okay, it's clearer. So use apa ni? Apa kita panggil ni? Laser pointer. Laser pointer, rather than the normal mouse or the because that one cannot. Sometimes students cannot see. Right? Okay, let's have a look at the second strategy or second step, which is construct concise and comprehensive text. Okay, usually people say that, oh, lecture tu susah nak faham, boring lah. Boring means sebenarnya terlampau banyak teks most of the time. Okay, so the principles that we can use is use information chunking. Okay, Okay, how to chunk information. Okay, this is the actual term in cognitive load theory, information chunking. How to chunk information. Okay, you have a very long information that you want to present to the student. So you have to divide that information into smaller component. Okay, before you design your slide, okay, you decide, I would present this one first and then this one. So chunk into smaller component. And then you prepare slide for each chunk. Sometimes you need to prepare slide for each slide. You can prepare in one slide, but introduce it one at a time. Okay, one at a time using animation. Okay, I will show it afterward. Okay, the aim is we want to introduce it one at a time so that the working memory can process that information. Okay, it has enough time and it will not exceed the 7 plus minus 2 element just now. So prepare slide for each chunk for information individually, so you can teach them in isolation. And then what happens next is, after you have introduced everything, you combine all the isolated component into one slide and then taught them as one meaningful information, meaning that you introduce the relationships of this information. For example, like this one. Okay, this is my topic. I'm sorry I'm using my own example because yalah tak tahu juga nak guna example lain. Okay, like I'm teaching embryology. I'm teaching how the blood circulates in fetal body. Okay, in babies, in utero. So this is we want to make sure that the student understand the blood circulation of fetus in mother's womb. So it is a process, a continuous process. So most of the time lecturers like to put everything as a text, but rather than giving that, remember, number one, we want to stimulate the visual and auditory. So make sure the diagram is there, make sure the text is also there. Okay, but how to chunk the text? Okay, so this one, maybe we want to introduce the first step only, this step only. The blood flows from body to placenta, for example, this step only. So introduce into one small box like this one. It's already, make sure the sentence, although we chunk it, make sure the sentence is complete so that it's intelligible to the learners when they read the sentence. Okay, so the student can understand what is written in the text. So it's a complete but simple text. Okay, and then after you have introduced this one, make sure you explain with your own word, okay, about the process. So number 2, and then introduce the second info, okay, with the appropriate labels. Like this one, only the structure that we want to explain only is labeled. Okay, other structure is not labeled at all. Okay. And then you introduce the second info, and then the third info, and then the fourth info. Okay, look, label also increase. Okay, then once we have introduced all the information, then we combine everything into one slide and explains verbally. Remember, at this point, student already have prior knowledge on each of these event happening on each side. So in the final slide, you can summarize everything without providing the text. Okay, let me give you an example. I'm giving the real example here. Okay. Okay, right. Now, today we were going to learn about the blood circulation, right? We're going to learn about the blood circulation, how the blood flows in babies inside the mother's womb, right? So what happened firstly is that, okay, you can see that this is the 2 umbilical arteries. Okay, 2 umbilical arteries will carry the deoxygenated blood. What is deoxygenated blood? Deoxygenated blood is the blood that has less oxygen. Okay, so and this oxygenated blood need to be oxygenated to take up more oxygen, right? So what happen is that this oxygenated blood will be carried by the 2 umbilical arteries, and then we go to the placenta. So placenta is just like a lung. Okay, okay, can you see that I'm not actually reading the text? Okay, that is the temporal contiguity effect just now. Okay, I'm not reading the text, but the text is there. Okay, right. So the next chunk of information, okay, so now the blood already reached the placenta. Okay, what happened at the placenta is that the mother's blood will give oxygen to the baby's blood. Babies will give carbon dioxide to the mother's blood. So there will be gas exchange here. And the baby's blood will also receive the nutrient. Okay, so that's what happened next. Then you explain what happened to the oxygenated blood by introducing this one, but using your verbal explanation. And then the well-oxygenated blood will enter the umbilical vein here, and this umbilical vein is only 1 umbilical vein compared to this one, 2 umbilical vein, right? And then you explain until all information has been introduced. Complete cycle. Okay, right. Okay, so the final one, you combine everything into one slide, can explain. Okay, let's summarize everything that we have learned just now. Okay, then you explain again. So at the placenta, there will be gas and nutrient exchange with maternal and fetal blood, right? And after that, the well-oxygenated blood will be carried by umbilical vein and pass through the ductus venosus to go, and also liver sinusoid, where it will go to the inferior vena cava. And from there, okay, enters the heart, okay, and then the major portion of the blood will pass through foramen ovale and all. And then just complete everything until you have complete the whole objective of your. So that is what we said, chunking information. Okay, in isolated interacting element effect. All right. So any question? Right. For the one is to manage the diagram. Sorry, let me see the checkbox. Using cursor pointer full dah, how could we know that it's suitable? Okay, dah, middle one. Okay, sekejap Right. A missing macam ada. Does note taking to capture the audio description while viewing the slide reduce or increase cognitive load, and thus should the teacher design the timing of the slide to allow time for note taking? Okay, actually good question, because there are many studies with regards to note taking. Okay, number one, if you have enough time, okay, with a very I will not say too slow, but the pacing, if you design your lectures, your verbal explanation is not too apa yang panggil panjang, not panjang, okay, maksudnya very nak cakap slow pun tak, the appropriate pacing, the student will have enough time to jot down notes. Itu, that is from study. And yes, if you are too fast in your lectures, the student will not have enough time to do note taking. Note taking is very important. Correct. Note taking is very important, especially when during the face-to-face diagram, face-to-face lectures or face-to-face session, because the student does not have this recording kan zaman dulu. Tapi sekarang when they have the recording, okay, they can always play the recording earlier. But according to research, note taking is very important. And in order for the student to do the note taking, we have to be very careful with our pacing. Okay, not too fast, not too slow, appropriately, so that the student can jot down the note. But what I always do during my lecture is, you can jot down the notes, but if you want to jot down the notes, make sure you only jot down what my verbal explanation, not something inside the slide. Okay, because I will give you the slide later. We have to provide them with this reassurance, okay, again and again, so that they feel okay not to jot down the notes that is listed in the PowerPoint slide. Only the verbal explanation. Sometimes I know that my verbal explanation is very important. I purposely mention, okay, please jot down this one. Okay, my explanation, jot down something. Okay, sometimes I just give them the terms. Okay, jot down this term and please read further. Okay, so we emphasize or we highlight which one that they need to jot down. Yeah, it's important, but we do not need to give them time, expect them to jot down the note, but our pacing should be tailored accordingly so that the student will have time to jot down important notes only. Okay, as with the verbal explanation. Okay, let me see. Any more questions? Sekejap tak ada Okay, right. So manage diagram. Manage diagram. Okay, of course we need to select appropriately sized diagram. Like this one is quite big enough for the student to understand the structure that we're going to teach them. And then diagram most of the time should be colored. Okay, colored. It's very difficult to learn diagram, a black and white diagram. It should be colored. And diagram should be clear when displayed on screen. Like this one is clear, right? And you can see that the labels, there's only one label. Okay, usually for like medical diagram, okay, if you take from book, okay, there will be lots of label. So we have to find ways on how to eliminate the unnecessary label. For example, if you want to teach them about the corners, so make sure there's only one label or related label that is explained in the text. Okay. Okay, and then avoid self-explanatory diagrams when teaching novice learners. This is what we call the expertise reversal effect. Okay, instruction that is effective for novice learners may not be effective to experienced learner. So for novice learners, usually they don't understand self-explanatory diagram. Okay, I always treat my student as novice, although sometimes they are second year, third year student. Okay, because sometimes they tend to forget. So when we actually give them some input, it's like retrieval cues. They can retrieve back what they learn in the long-term memory for them to process that information, right? So I always regard my student as novice learners. So I usually do not put the self-explanatory diagram. Meaning what is self-explanatory diagram? Just put the diagram here without any explanation, without any appropriate labelings. Okay, sometimes put the diagram and you put all the labels and then you explain verbally. It will not help the students who are novice. Okay, so avoid that one. So how to do it? Of course, physically integrated format. Okay. I have explained just now, put the diagram with the related text side by side, right? So why? Because this will address the spatial contiguity, space and temporal contiguity. Spatial contiguity effect and temporal contiguity effect. Spatial means that the learning will be enhanced when when the text and diagram are physically integrated, meaning you put it side by side in your PowerPoint slide. If you split it, the student will have split attention effect. Okay, they have to split their attention into two separated related information. That will increase the extraneous load. Another one is temporal contiguity. What is temporal contiguity? Temporal means that you have to have this design first, okay, spatial meaning side by side, and then you have to explain the information using your own word. So that is temporal contiguity. Okay, so learning is enhanced when pictorial material and related verbal explanation are presented simultaneously rather than sequentially. Sometimes common practice is that you introduce the word first, and then worst case scenario, you just read the text, and then the next slide you explain the diagram. Okay, that will increase the students' cognitive load. Instead, when you introduce it this side by side, you can just explain. Okay, there are three sulci at the inferior surface of the brain. Okay, number one. Okay, as labeled here, A is olfactory sulcus. Okay, the H-shaped sulcus is B, which is the orbital sulcus. Okay, so you can do like that. Okay, explain using your own word so that the diagram become more effective. So these are the two. This is the physically integrated format. Let me see the just now. Is it good idea to add animation? Yes, correct. It's good to add animation. I will explain it more here. Okay. Ada lagi. We have, in this case, I believe time is our biggest enemy. Correct. We have to finish a topic in 45 to 50 minutes, although there are some topics based on BPK are extended to more than one lecture. I find this challenging as students usually need some time to warm up. Any suggestion on how to go about this? Yes, correct. Okay, what I usually do, of course, like anatomy also, like what I'm teaching is anatomy, a lot of information to be taught, according to the learning outcome. Okay, that one is according to the learning outcome. So what I usually do is that I will provide them with pre-learning activities or pre-learning material. Okay, the learning outcomes that can be covered as self-learning, usually I'll give them in e-learning. Okay, with proper guidance and also monitoring, meaning we monitor their activities. Like the pre-learning material that to stimulate the prior knowledge, yes, I did that. Okay, but for example, you have 6 learning outcome, and you know that the learning outcome number 4, 5, 6 will take about 1 hour or 50 minutes time. You cannot afford to complete this to cover all 6 learning outcome at that 1 hour time. So usually what I do is I will provide videos, okay, videos to cover that can cover the 3 learning outcomes, the simpler one. And then I provide them with quiz, okay. And what happened next, actually the same thing that I've mentioned earlier. At the beginning of the lecture, I will discuss, not give lectures, actually I will discuss with them what the first 3 learning outcome. If we cover about about at least 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes like that. And I will ensure that the next subsequent class, like for us, we have practical session. Okay, some of the practical session will cover the first or 3 learning outcome. Yes, basically, lecture cannot cater everything, especially if you have long topic. But we have to be creative. We have to be creative. Sometimes we can embed that as self-learning at the beginning. Okay, I think you have learned about this in your previous class. Okay, I'm going to put this as self-learning. Okay, but please make sure we need to follow up again what we have given them. Okay, like for example in the quizzes during the lecture, intra-lecture quizzes or intra-lecture, meaning you put self-learning material during the lecture. So this one, please answer this question and we'll discuss it during practical, something like that, something that students is really sure that you're going to follow up them later. Okay, so yeah, I agree. It's very difficult to control. But if you do properly using the cognitive load theory, sometimes it can simplify the content that you're going to make. For example, like embryology just now that I've shown you, the blood supply, it actually takes about 1.5 hours to explain one by one. But when you use diagram, you use animation, it becomes very simple. It can cover within 1 hour. Not actually now hour, less than 1 hour. So yeah, I think we have to use whatever skills that we have to help the students, okay, especially during classes. Okay, now use visual cues and signal. Okay, right. This is the one example, and dotted line. Okay, like in my topic, we have to stimulate 3D visualization from 2D diagram. So it's very difficult sometimes. If you have this kind of your content is something like this, so you have to really use these visual cues and signals. Okay, for example, like this one, we want to show the flexures. Okay, flexures. Okay, you can just by using this dotted line. Okay, macam ni, curve. You can see that it's curved like this. And then also this is another curve. So student knows that the flexures is like this and like this, right? Instead of just showing the diagram, they cannot imagine. Okay, so it's very important. Okay, among that can be used is dotted line. Okay, animation. Actually, I'm using lots of animation in my presentation today. If you realize, yes, it's good to use animation, but not too much. Not too much, because excessive animation can produce extraneous load. Your animation should only be used if you want to for example, if you want to introduce one information at one time. Okay, you just introduce one box, and then after you have explained that information, then you use another, you mix another box appear, right? Something like that. What else? Or you want to emphasize certain structure, then you introduce the animation. So that's but not too much, because too much animation can sometimes distract the learners also. Okay. Okay, this is the number 5, select proper font and text treatment. Okay, I believe that most of us are using sans serif font. Okay, what is the difference between sans serif and serif font? Serif is when you can see this line, okay, at the edge of each words, because just like you are typing using typewriter. It's not to say that serif font is not good. Serif font is better on printed text. That's why our students' thesis usually in Times New Roman. Okay, so this appears better on the printed text, whereas for serif font, where there is no line, okay, at the edge of the word too, this is appear better on digital screen. Okay, so that's why it's good to have this one. Okay, usually I use Arial, Tahoma, and Verdana. For Calibri, if you prefer Calibri, I find it's very, you have to use bigger font if you want to use Calibri, because it's quite thin. Sometimes students, especially the backbenchers, if you are doing face-to-face lectures, cannot see the slide. So you have to use higher size font. All right, this is also according to research, but this is for face-to-face lecture. Okay, for the backbenchers, the your headings. Okay, headings means this one. Headings or subheadings should not less than 32. Contents not less than 24. Content, this one. Okay, this is font size. Labels not less than 20. This one. But me personally, when I use 20, I will always bold make the the labels bold, so that it appears better. Okay. And then use text treatment also. Text treatment is like bold, apa lagi, italic, right? Underline, I usually use underline because this is, I don't know, it appears very not to say overcrowded if I use underline, but usually I always use bold and sometimes italic. Most of the time it's bold, and also use certain colors to highlight important information. Not too much, only important information only. Okay. Like for example, that this one, we want to introduce about internal carotid artery. You can see the structure is very difficult to see, difficult for the student to identify, right? But if you put certain text treatment like bold here, and then you use different color, okay, can actually apa tu stimulate or guide their attention to look at the diagram. Okay. And this is to avoid extraneous word, diagram, and animation. Okay, sometimes, okay, especially new lecturers, you like to use this kind of animation, okay, unnecessary animation like this one, okay, like cartoon. It is not good for, for lectures especially, because student will pay more attention to this animation rather than the actual info, right? So avoid this one. I think that's all, but let me give you the comment message first because I opened the question. First of all, we have to look at the audience. Okay? We have audience, whether we are teaching the novice student, the experienced learner, okay? But we know our audience. Whatever it is, we have to ensure that before our class, prepare our audience, prepare our students, either stimulate their prior knowledge or instill their prior knowledge. And then when you want to prepare the slide, choose appropriate slide background, and then make sure you chunk your content, and then use appropriate color and use appropriate visual cue, and then the diagram. Manage your diagram appropriately. Remember to avoid all the extraneous elements, and for the font, choose appropriate font size, appropriate font type, and also utilize text treatment, including animation appropriately. I think that's all. Actually, I'm going to give you all this. This is the book that I have written according to my research. I have developed the cognitive load theory-based lecture model, which has been proven to be effective in anatomy lectures, at least in my contact anatomy lectures. But if you want to have a look at this, you can just scan this QR code. Or go to this link. Sorry, I'm going. Ada orang tanya soalan kejap ya. Tengok kejap. In this case, I believe time. Okay, this one dah. Awesome answer. Thank you. Thank you. Please clarify on sans serif versus serif font. For presentation, not supposed to use serif font. Okay, for presentation, we use. Okay. Hold on. Yeah. For presentation, we use sans serif font. Okay? Because sans serif font appear better on screen. Okay, on digital screen, either in laptop, okay, projected slides. Okay, so usually we use this one because for serif font, okay, you can see the tail, right? There is like a line that tail out at the edge of the words. That is actually the distraction. If it does not appear clear. For text, we usually use Times New Roman for writing thesis. Okay, the printed text. Printed text mean like written, something that you print, like your thesis ke, your apa ni, minit mesyuarat ke, anything that printed, yes, you can use this Times New Roman. But for presentation, should be serif font. Sorry, can please clarify? For text, we always use Times New Roman. Okay, text in PowerPoint, use this one. Okay, text in printed like Microsoft Word, okay, something that you are going not to display it on digital screen, use this one. Okay, printed this one, yes, serif font. Printed should be serif font. Okay, right. Share link please sebab nak tengok dalam. Okay, ada cara nak scan dalam PC. Macam mana ni? Yang mana tak faham? Share link please sebab nak tengok dalam PC. Oh, okay. Tak apa, nanti saya share link kejap ya. Sorry. Oh, kena unshare dulu ya. Okay, saya share link. Okay, this is the link to the sorry tak buat dia tahan URL pula. Terlupa. Tapi I think try cuba tengok is the link working? Okay, or you can also scan this QR code and then it will bring you to the book. Okay, I think that's all from me. Kejap ya, ada few more slides. Tak ada slide apa sangat lah. Alright, sebenarnya okay, PowerPoint is how to say, it is just a tool. Okay, we as educator, okay, we are the one who determine whether it is effective or not. So I think at this point, okay, PowerPoint is still the not to say the best way, but it's the most feasible way to to do lectures, to deliver our content materials, especially during teaching. I think that's all from me. Okay, if you have any question, okay, I'm happy to accept any question. Right. Okay, that's all. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Wani, back to you.
Doktor, I think ada last question tu. Doktor dah ni ke?
Oh,
I used to find presentation using Calibri. Is it suitable?
Oh yeah, Calibri, like I mentioned earlier, Calibri, yes, it is still under sans serif font. However, Calibri is a bit thin. If you compare with Arial, Calibri is a bit thin. So if you want to look at the size font just now, right? Size font, you have to increase the sign, the font, the size font. Like for example, if for the text not less than 24, for Calibri perhaps you have to use 28, because it's a bit thin. Sometimes the students from the backbenchers, they cannot see. Okay, I've tested it in my own class, and the student actually I get feedback from the students. I written feedback on my Google or in piece of paper, and they commented about the Calibri, the use of Calibri. Dia kata tak nampak sangat doktor. Kalau boleh boldkan, bagilah suggestion macam tu. So I decided not to use Calibri in my lecture. So I usually use Arial, Tahoma, Arial and Tahoma. I think that's my comment on this one. But Calibri is acceptable. Yeah, increase font only. Yeah. I use, okay, ada lagi tak? Rasa macam tak ada ya.
Ada yang from Dr. Peter tu, is working with memory capacity more or less a constant.
It is okay. The limitation is fixed already. Limitation. We know that it can only process, because this is based on neuro research and neuropsychology and neurology research. Okay. I would say that it's constant, because at this point from the research we know that it can only process about 7 plus minus 2 information. I don't know in the future if somebody do research in this area, maybe they find out new findings, perhaps because of our new generation, they are more engaged to something, we don't know, we never know. But at this point, yes, it is constant with 7 plus minus 2 information and 3 to 5 chunk information, 20-second processing capacity. So if you fulfill that one for your instructional design I think that would be very good. And you can try to measure your students' cognitive load. Okay, we have the validated questionnaire. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that validated questionnaire also measure the third load, which is the germane load. Okay, germane load is the good load, a load that is necessary to help the students to pay more attention on processing the intrinsic load. But at this point, it's very difficult to measure the germane load objectively. So germane load is usually by stimulating their motivation, stimulating their interest, stimulating their perceived learning ability. So it's very complex, I think. But at this point, maybe just concentrate on IL and EL only. But if you want to measure, perhaps you can discuss with me. I will show you how to analyze the germane load in that questionnaire. I can share the questionnaire if anyone want the questionnaire later. Okay. No issue, right? What do you mean text no issue? Okay, I think tak ada dah kot nah. Doktor ada tips untuk learner yang nak increase working memory capacity. We cannot actually nak increase the working memory capacity ni, kita kena reducekan extraneous load. Yang tu yang penting. Okay, ada tips nak learner increase, because bila kita reduce extraneous load, kita free the working memory resources. Kita kita freekan macam kita delete benda-benda yang tak important, kita freekan memori komputer kita. Macam tu lah. So bila kita reduce the working memory, the extraneous load, we are freeing some of the working memory resources. So that's why kita increase the working memory capacity. Tapi to be honest, working memory is also being influenced by emotion, the German load just now, emotion, the motivation. So we have to ensure that the student like our class. First of all, they have to like us. They have to like us so that they are happy to attend our class. When they're happy to attend our class, okay, they are more open. So anything, kalau dia takut nak masuk kelas kita kan, itu increase load satu lagi tu. German load dia rendah. German load in order to learn, German load kena tinggi supaya dia ada motivation nak belajar. So itulah. Tapi kalau in term of PowerPoint slide presentation, we have to reduce the extraneous load so that we can free the working memory capacity and increase the working memory capacity. Harapnya saya menjawab soalan ya. Yes, I will share the slides later through CDAE. Okay, I think that's all. Meaning if you use Calibri, yes, Calibri in writing printed text, is it? Okay, if in printed text, it's okay to use, actually it's okay to use for printed text, either sans serif or serif, but what makes from research, which one is better is the serif font for printed text. Okay, printed text is more effective in printed text compared to the digital screen and vice versa. That is what comes for research. Tapi okay if you want to use the serif font on printed text, okay je, tak ada masalah. But for PowerPoint slide, because we are projecting to screen, so it's better to use serif font. Serif font. Because why? Because student dia perceive melalui digital screen kan. Digital screen ni they have to use dia punya, they have macam tadi lah, they absorb the light lah, macam-macam. So can easily strain the eye. So we want to reduce the extraneous load as much as possible. So better use sans serif font. Okay, lagi ada tak soalan lain? I think that's all. Tak ada dah kot Wani ya?
Ada lagi satu.
Oh, ada lagi, saya tak nampak lah. Kecil
Is
je.
the third load mentioned in your book?
Yes, it's mentioned. Everything is mentioned. In fact, my book is actually for the whole lecture. What should we do before lecture? The one that I'm presenting now is for only when during preparation of lecture. Okay, but that book consider what before lecture and after lecture as well. I think after lecture, yeah. How do you end your lecture?
Is this method also suitable to use for talk session purpose?
Yes, exactly. Yes. But maybe it takes time to apply the principle, but along the way, okay, you can boleh dapatnya lah, boleh adapt insyaAllah. Cuma kena tahu, mulakan dahulu. Try dulu, then lepas tu dia boleh expand, boleh expand. Dan kalau berminat kan, boleh baca lagi lah pasal cognitive load theory sebab banyak sangat resources buat cognitive load theory. I think that's all kan. Ada lagi tak ni? Any health tips to improve the capacity of brain parts that relate? Oh, health tip okay. Health tips to improve the capacity of brain parts. Okay. Kena keep healthy lah kot. Makan yang bersesuaian. Emosi lah, especially we have to ensure that our emotional well-being is being monitored, especially our student kan. Kalau emotional well-being dia kena betul-betul. Another line is adalah dia punya coping strategies to stress. Okay. Those yang distress, okay. Satu lagi trait, personality trait. Kalau ada personality trait pun dia ada tendency pergi ke stress, dia punya coping mechanism tu different. Tips saya tak ada lah betul-betul health tips ni, tetapi kena jaga macam mana coping for stress. So I think kalau kita ada program untuk student kita how to cope with stress, like in our school, in medical school, we have that program untuk cope with stress kan. So that they can learn better. Tu learning environment lah tu. Learning environment termasuk psychological problem, psychological factors. Okay, itu lagi tak? uh, uh, that
Rasa
means
macam dah tak ada rasanya di bahagian chat tu, rasanya dah terjawab semuanya.
tak nampak jugalah sebab kecil je keluar kan. Sebab kita share slide ni. Okay. Alright.
Okay.
Itulah saya mohon maaf kalau sekiranya apa ni? Hilang dah. Wani ada lagi ke?
Ada, saya ada.
Okay. Sebab hilang terus ni Webex. Saya tak nampak apa-apa.
Oh, ya ke?
Saya tak terkeluar. Terima kasih banyak-banyak lah. Okay, baru keluar. Okay. Mohon maaf kalau presentation ni kurang jelas. Sebab saya tak berada di office right now. Saya berada di luar station. Internet pun tak berapa bagus. Okay. Dan saya pun terlupa bawa slide yang saya dah baiki. Saya hanya slide yang yang lama. Okay, jika ada apa-apa masalah boleh email saya lah. InsyaAllah saya cuba bantu setakat mana yang boleh. Okay. Okay, itu sahaja daripada saya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you everyone.
Salam. Thank you so much Dr. Siti for your sharing. Saya pasti memang kita punya peserta hari ni dah dapat ilmu yang baru lah untuk design
Alhamdulillah.
presentation PowerPoint ni, guna ni cognitive theory. Okay, insyaAllah nanti mungkin kita akan jumpa lagi Dr. Siti in the next webinar mungkin.
InsyaAllah. InsyaAllah.
Okay,
Terima kasih
kindly.
CDAE.
Ya. Okey, kepada semua peserta, mohon klik link attendance tu. Sekiranya ada masalah, boleh maklum kepada saya. Saya tunggu 5 minit lagi. Thank you.
Slide saya bagi pada email pada Wani ya?
Boleh, Doktor.
Okay.
Slide ni nanti saya akan upload dalam kita punya YouTube channel tu, di bawah bahagian description tu. So, nanti kalau participants nak download, dia boleh dapatkan daripada situ lah.
Okay. Baik.
Okay.
Okay, terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Dr. Siti.
Sama. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum. Dr. T, nanti saya akan upload slides ni dekat YouTube channel CDAE. Sebab kita punya webinar ni kita stream juga ke YouTube, so nanti akan ada kat situ lah.